Hey there, viewers. It's Eric in the alley. Today I got Tom's 2005 Pontiac Vibe with the big 1.8. And customer complaint, basically, it's vibrating too much. It's mainly due to the large crack in the exhaust. I'm going to got it up on jack stands. I'm going to take the camera down there, show you what's going on with it. Sorry guys, I just couldn't resist. The main reason I did that is Tom got this car for his grandkid and showing him how to fix up a car. He's doing things one at a time, got a good deal on it. You know, I think he said he paid $300 for it. You know, it's a Pontiac Vibe. They have a Toyota powertrain in them, so it's, you know, probably the best Pontiac you'll ever get other than GTO. But he's teaching him how to do it, and there's a couple things he can't get to. You know, he's in the 70s, so he's not going to crawl under it. I'm in my 50s, and it's, you know, hard for me to crawl under him, but I do have a flat floor, and I got jack stands and everything in the creeper, so I'm pretty comfortable doing it. But whenever I was talking to him yesterday, he asked me if I had a scanner, and he mentioned he watched Eric O. And I mean, that was pretty cool. Flipped me out. I was almost going to be like, you know, well, I got a channel on your truck spin on it since I put the struts on it. But I mean, it's, you know, what are the chances of coincidence? So I had to do a little Eric O intro there. And I figured, you know, while I'm at it, Eric O, he you know, he's the textbook of automotive repair. And it's kind of like my style. Like I like the electronics, I like the diagnosis, I like things like that are new to me, and I like learning. But if I did all just that, I think I'd burn out on it. I'm more like him. I'd like, you know, some days you just like the simplicity of a ball joint. You know, I mean, it's, you know, he has a lot of tools I don't have. I mean, there's things I do have to turn away because I don't have one of them hub handlers, and there's certain ball joints or certain wheel bearings I can't get off here in the garage. But I have been known to take them to the machine shop of a buddy's and, you know, press them out if I can, you know, mainly on Toyotas. But I just figure it's a good time to show you, you know, everything that he does is 100% textbook right. And I've learned so much off of him. And it's things I do every day. I mean, I learned either his way or a better way. So, you know, he's in a big, you know, or a professional garage with a lot of the equipment. But if you just follow what he does, I mean, most of the stuff that you look at that he has, that's just because of how much he has to use his stuff. When I worked in the garage, I mean, if you didn't have Snap-on or Mac, I mean, you didn't have anything, you know, it's because you depended on it 100 times a day. Now, working on your own family's vehicles and working on your friends' vehicles, there you could get away with a lot of the cheaper tools. But if you use his techniques, you know, it's not like he's out of your league on the repairs. Take I mean, excellent notes of how he does everything. I mean, if it's not the tool, it's his technique. If you're, you know, just doing a couple cars, a lot of this stuff you get away with Harbor Freight stuff with. And then, you know, that's kind of what my channel's about. I like seeing these guys. I like seeing him and Paul Danner. Paul Danner, he's a, you know, animal all of his own. I love him. I mean, I'm a member of the premium, have been for years. And he's a little bit different. He's all about the diagnostics, and he'll show you crazy stuff like how he uses his body for a resistor, everything. I mean, you all know what I mean. If you watch Erico, you watch Danner. I mean, there's a lot of good guys out there. Super Mario. I mean, you could just keep naming and naming and naming, but it's just pretty cool. Somebody mentioned Erico, and you know, like I said, his truck's been on YouTube for about a year, and you know, I'm going to tell him when I'm done with this. But the whole idea is everything I learned from Eric O. And I mean, even though I'm in the alley, he's going to get a job, you know, that hopefully Eric O. will give the thumbs up to. All right, guys, I'll get ready to this now. All right, guys, the speakers were another thing that was not a vibrating on this car. They got a new head unit for it, but the old stereo, I mean, there's some real shady wiring gear. We all know what Erico would say about those things. But there's a relay hooked up to the B positive with no tape, no nothing. Don't know what was in it, but we're going to wire that in. I found some factory schematics. We're going to find the right wires, and we're going to just hardwire it in. He said they do not make an adapter kit for it to just plug directly in, so we're going to just hardwire it. a little bit of pressure. The guy watches Eric O, and we're going to hardwire his stereo in there. But hey, it's no problem, guys. If you do things right, you do things right. Now that's what you're out to do. All right, and we had ordered some good parts. These are Walker cats and Walker system. And then a muffler we got for it, and we got a Walker 02. These are pretty decent O2s. I mean, I've used them a lot. Walker, I mean, when it comes to exhaust, Walker and Universal, I mean, you could, it's pretty decent stuff. It's not factory, but it's, these work. And plus, we could test them. So what we're also going to do, and this what leads to a tip that, definitely got from Erico, is these bumpers to shake loose exhaust. I don't know if we're going to need them today, but I mean, anything on suspension, you got pins to pull out. I like that big thumper he got, but this is a Harbor Freight, Chief. That's what I got. Hook it up to the air. And the thing with the bumpers is I wanted one, and you have to get a whole nother set just to get one little bumper. On Amazon, I got these for under $20. And I mean, just that tip alone is golden, because I use these a lot to shake loose suspension before you try to get the bolt off. Put that on the bolt and give it a couple smacks. Shake things loose before you try to break the bolt. A lot of times that rust is just build up on there, and you want to shake it loose. And I've seen him do it so many times. I'm like, I got to try it. And hey, I'm glad I did, man. I don't know if I'm going to need it today, but definitely a tip I got from him. The other thing I just want to say is this is an OEM O2 sensor socket, OEM Tools brand. Now, I've used that. In all reality, it's pulled maybe 20 oxygen sensors. That's about the lifetime of one of these. Then this spreads a little bit. It was rounding off on that upstream. And the reason we're going for an upstream is his downstream looks pretty good. It looks like I could get it out of there. I usually don't have any trouble getting the downstream out if it's, not a power rust. There's no engine light on. And Tom read on Rock Auto, it's a good idea when replacing the cat, and probably from watching South Main, that it's a good idea to replace the oxygen sensor. And there's no light on now. I told him I could probably get his out of there for that. And if you're going to protect the cat, the number one is the upstream, and it's 100% going to protect your cat more than replacing the downstream. The downstream's monitoring the cat. So this is going to be the big player in your whole fuel trim. So you want to give an ECM the right idea, the correct condition. Now, on this O2 sensor, this is the OEM, it's spread out. I went to Harbor Freight. This one was under $10. I think it was $8. But the problem was this one was 1/2 inch. This one was 3/8. Some of these big 1/2 inch wrenches or ratchets, I don't mind putting a lot of torque on them to break a O2 sensor loose. But this is the 3/8. You'll bend these. And plus you don't want to put that torque on the flex head. So I did not have a 3/8 inch breaker bar. So I just got it's a Pittsburgh automotive one. It was $11. But I put it on there, and the Harbor Freight one, for a couple O2 sensors, I'm sure it's going to be, as good as the OEM one was. So that's a quick tip on there, but don't use your ratchets to break them loose. If you got a 3/8 one, get a 3/8 inch breaker bar, or use an old ratchet that you don't like. That's not a good thing to use on your favorite 3/8 inch tool. And sometimes for leverage, like especially these, like this is a long handle. I think this is a Husky. It's tempting to use that if you have a 3/8, but you're going to bend that. Get a Pittsburgh 3/8 inch breaker bar, whatever you got to get. So you can see down there the O2 sensor and why I didn't want to mess with that heat shield. So when that socket started to round, that's when I say, it's time to go get another one. Because even on a cheap one, you're going to get a good grip on it. And it's loose now. I could spin it. So I'm going to leave that. But I mean, those are the reasons why. Because if you strip that out, you got to deal with these bolts holding that heat shield on so you could get something on it. That's not a very fun time whenever it could have been that easy. See that bolt with the spring on it right there? Enhance. There we go. I sprayed that down very good last night, but still, only a fool would try taking them off without a little bit of heat. And what I'm going to do is the close quarters in there. I have one of these porta torches. If you're going to do any kind of exhaust work, these things they come in very good. That and a MIG welder doesn't hurt either. But to get this in there, the angle of the head is, you have more of a chance of catching something on fire, and there's not a lot of room. And plus, you don't need that much heat. MAP gas and just a MAP gas torch head with a hose on it. I use this more than I use big torches because, this lasts a long time and it gets things pretty red. I'm going to get it red, and then I'm going to use this long extension from underneath and back them bolts out very slow. It's just like a tip. If you, instead of just relying on PB blaster, MAP gas, it's very hot. All right, guys, there's where it's cracked. It's pieced together, and it's all pretty much, from sitting rotted out. So what we're going to do is take the O2 sensor out before I take those spring bolts out, just to make this pipe, it's still pretty rigid because it's bolted up top. I just don't want it bouncing around. But another tip I learned from Erica is ice cold. I did not put no PB blaster or anything on that O2 sensor. Usually just one shot or one good push with a good breaker bar, just, without any heat. And then if we get any resistance, we'll heat it up. All right, guys, there she is. I'm going to just get under there, same breaker bar and same socket I used up top. Get my hood up a little. Okay, guys, just one good shot and we're going to see. Just like that. Now you can put some penetrant on it and unscrew it, but you heard that big crack, she's free. Now you can use an open end wrench, whatever you need to do to get it out. So once again, thank you, Erica. All right, guys, what I'm doing, I put the MAP gas under here, just one of these Ventomatic torch heads. That lets me get in there. It takes a little bit longer than the acetylene, but it gets you a little bit more precise. Then I have a long 3/8 extension on that old AC Delco ratchet. What I'm gonna do is fire it up, and I'll see if I can hold you under there, and it gets it red pretty quick, and it's a pretty thin flange, so it shouldn't take too long. PB blaster burning off. I don't know if you could see down in there, but just right here the flange. See how quick it's got it? I'm not trying to heat the bolt. You can still see it glowing. And it should still be hot enough by the time I get under there. All right, got the exhaust fan on, sucking out that. That was mostly burning PB blaster. It's I had those ones, the spring bolts. I did hit with PB Blaster yesterday before I left, but this is just another quick tip. I told myself years ago, I got these cheap AC Delco. I got 3/8 drive and 1/4 inch, and I figured if they lasted me a couple months, I'd get the Milwaukees, because I have a couple M12s. These things are literally, I mean, over 3 years old. I mean, they're just, and they keep going. With that long extension on there, still drove them bolts out of the flange. I mean, they were hot, but still, I mean, it's pretty impressive for how long I've had these and how much abuse they've put up with. And while the fumes come out, I'm going to go down the house. In my wood shop, I have my electric sawzall. I got a little cordless one there, more than likely do the job, but whenever you have electricity available, I mean, I go with the DeWalt, you know, let it run instead of killing your batteries. But it's, you could use the torch, you could blow them off, but whenever you're under a car like that, you know, and as easy as these things cut, I really like these torch blades. These things, I mean, yeah, you'll cut quite a few exhaust systems off with one blade, I guarantee it. Okay, guys, the way I look at it is, this is going to get me out of more jams with these smaller tanks. If I absolutely need the gas, I use the gas. But something as simple as sawing off an exhaust pipe just for convenience, you know, if you got an electric sawzall, you know, this is going to come in handy someday. It's something that a sawzall is probably not going to be able to help you with. So if you can use anything, same with the MIG welder. I got the welding gas tank on the back of that. But it's, if I could use flux core, I will. But it's whenever you need the gas and you need the 220, I mean, you can't beat it. But, you know, if I can use flux core, I definitely will, to save on the gas. All right, and here's another trick I learned from Erica too. On the O2 sensors, a lot of times you have to use a wrench. And a wrench works really good on them if you give them that one cold snap. But sometimes you got to bend one to make it work somewhere, so I'll just save them. There's a 13/16 one and a 7/8 one, and I bent the head. I didn't even use the acetylene torch. I actually used the map gas to heat the wrench up and bend the head like that. But anytime you see, you don't use the American sizes 2 anymore. This is a Chinese one. This is a Craftsman one. A lot of my tools are random. I mean, even my wrenches. I got them all, but they're, you know, they're not even all the same. You do what you can. You make sure you got the right tools, but you make sure, you know, you at least got one of them. I'm not too brand specific. All right, guys, I'm going to just cut it off. I'm going to go right behind these rubber connectors. They're right in front of it from that view, but I'm going to just cut it off. I like taking it off in pieces and working my way back. I give all the scrap to the burro, so I like keeping it in pretty decent, you know. Don't want to give them a very long piece of scrap to haul out of here. I just want to show you how quick these things cut. Now, this one's brand new, but timber. I should have put an Erico scream in there. All right, I have to remove this little brace that goes across the exhaust pipe, but then I'm going to put one more cut in it, and then it makes it easier taking it off in pieces, fighting these rubber grommets. I'm going to hit them with a little bit of PB Blaster, and they usually slide right out. Sometimes you have to use those channel locks. They do make a tool for that, to pop these out, but I don't have one usually. You know, if it comes down to it, I'll cut this if I have to, and then just pull it out as a piece. But they come out pretty easy. But just put one more cut in it, and then you could take the muffler off in the back. All right, guys, that came out in pieces pretty nice and easy. What's good, this kit came with new hangers. There's 6 altogether, but it's worth your while replacing these because you can see how beat out the hooks make them, and just how stretched they are. Each one of them could be a little rattle all of its own, so you want to make sure if you're replacing the whole system, you're counting these. And comes with new bolts, of course. We're going to put a little bit of copper anti-seize on them, just so if we ever have to get it out again, it's going to come out, fairly easy. You can see the old gasket, and I mean, it was hanging in there. These bend whenever you tighten it, so they look a lot more damaged than they actually are. That's and here it's getting worn. You can see it's getting down to the fibers, but whenever that pipe, it doesn't go on there exactly straight. And this is the new gasket we got for that. And what I always use is this muffler cement also, because when you're under there working, you want this to stay on the manifold. I put a little bit around the inside, not so much the outside. You can, but these are very soft gaskets, so they crush. You usually don't get a leak on here. Whenever you're sliding mufflers together, I always use this. It helps them slide together better, and it eliminates a leak. And it says 1953, and I was going to say, this was around since I was a kid. I mean, this is what we used on cherry bombs, everything, the same exact brand. And this is great for that. This will not fix holes. I mean, that's what a lot of people try to use it for, and then you get a bad rap, oh, you're using, pipe dope on it. And it's like, no, this isn't for the outside. This isn't to fix a hole from the outside. This goes on the inside. This goes on gaskets like that. Just to seal a leak on a good install whenever you do it for repairs, Just like that on the inside of it. Nothing on the outside. Just on the inside of the gasket to hold it there. Otherwise, you're not sure it's going to stay there while you're getting them bolts in. All right, to put a dollop Permatex, the copper anti-seize, and whenever I get under there to put them in, I don't want to use nothing impact or electric. I use a flex head ratchet, and so it's more like turning it with the palm of your hand. You got a better feel for it anyways. You don't want to strip them out. All right, guys, rolling under. There's where I am. I'm going to pick up the pipe and put it on top of me. I'm not going to be able to show you all that, but I'm going to lay it on top of my chest and with one hand reach around here with it and put one of the bolts in. All right, guys, I just figured I'd show you where I'm at. This got to make a hell of a racket going down the road. It's rotted through here, and it's even mount's got a rotted off nut in it, bent. And it's already been zip tied up there. Now, if it was mine, I'd probably just take this shield off. Being it's going around the gas tank, you don't want to be the one to make that call. But the least I could do is up there. There's a strap for the gas tank. There's not many access areas or anything like anywhere around here to get a zip tie like how somebody did there. The zip tie right here, that's going to be a little bit too close to the pipe, it might melt. So I'm going to just fish a piece of baling wire up around that strap, then through this hole. I'd rather have it up against the tank than, dangling off the pipe. And you still get the, protection of the heat shield. But either way, this way looking underneath it, Tom got a little bit better idea what he's up against, because the chance of finding one of these, you might on eBay. You never say never. But it's either that or take it off. It's close call, but you don't want to be the one to do it, because it's just like the fuel tank goes around the pipe air. Now, there could be a perfect storm. They don't know much about this car. It could get a pinpoint leak on the exhaust pipe. Better off to have the shield there, even if you have to deal with a tiny bit of noise. But we're going to try to get that all out of it anyway. All right, moving on back, I have put new hangers here and in front too, and then put a new gasket on the pipe. Then I'm going to put this over, and it came with hardware for it's like spring system again for that. So just bolt that together, and then I'll be ready for the muffler. So you guys, the cat and the downpipe, it installed beautifully. New gaskets, new resonator. And then it goes over the back, and that's the thicker walled pipe. Now, when it got to the thinner walled pipe, the piece that goes into the chrome tip fit inside the muffler, but on the bend you could see where the jaws distorted the inside of the pipe. So this had to be increased, I'd say by a 1/16 of an inch. I sent Aaron out to get one of them Lona Tools, the pipe expanders, and it didn't even want to do it. I mean, it's those things are garbage unless you get a good one. This was just like AutoZone's, and it didn't want to go at all. It was going to just break the tool if I kept going. So what I did, it did open it up enough I could get the front in. I heated it up, and I just kind of swedged it in there, and it's clamped on too, so that's going to stick in there pretty good for him. It's just the aluminized pipe, the cheaper gauge pipe, the thinner gauge pipe. Now where it goes into the front pipe, the darker pipe there, the flange is a little bit off. The bolt holes on it, but it was still enough to seal it. It did come with a good, the front pipe came with a stainless steel gasket. It's like a mesh that if you hold your hand over the tailpipe, you'll see moisture actually come out of it. That would be in case of a plugged muffler. It's going to protect your cat. It was a little bit better quality than like the leaded one that came with the kit for the back, so I used what came with the cat. Just give it, you know, it's going to give you some more protection there if you did get a plug from there back. But other than that, all new hangers, everything's on there good. Put all the hangers facing, you know, the front so you don't see any bolts hanging down. You know, nice chrome tip came with it. I mean, it's a pretty decent kit. All the hangers were dead on, can't complain about that. This fit good, but the other side, you would have swore it was the same size pipe that you were trying to get it into, but it was right where they had this bend. Probably on the pipe bender, when they bend it, you could still see the fingers in there where it was, you know, expanded to hold the pipe. But we got it in there one way or another. I was figuring I'd take you on there, show you that heat shield that was rattling around. I put it 2 different places. I put some bellum wire just to hold it up. He had some zip ties there. I just put some bellum wire there and some bellum wire on the other side, so, you know, no rattle to it. You hit a bump pretty good. Yeah, a little bit, but it's, you know, you see what I mean. On an unknown vehicle, I mean, you know, if it was mine, I would take that heat shield down, but I mean, I'm sure you guys know, you know, understand. I mean, even Tom, nobody's been under this before. If you take off that heat shield and there's gas, then you got a whole nother problem. But, you know, you just want to avoid anything like that. Let the heat shields at least leave the way it came in. All right, guys, I'm going to unjack it and start doing the wiring for a stereo. All right, guys, back on Tom's stereo. For his grandson's car. I just rolled one of these carts I got and found in the alley. Actually, my neighbor's throwing it away. But works pretty good to just wheel, you know, your tools and everything right in the door and keep you comfortable. And the same Harbor Freight under hood light bar I use for light inside the car too. I couldn't get any B1 power, but I found a blown fuse, and now we're back in business. I'm using these inline connectors. I'll show you more. I want to get the car done for him. He has to get it inspected, and then his grandkids finally gonna be able to drive once he gets his license here. But they only give you so many days to take it back to get it re-inspected. So, and it was here for the exhaust, but we're getting a stereo going for him too. But the inline connectors, they work very good. These are the double crimp. One side, it crimps one side to the insulation, one side to the actual wire. We're getting rid of these things. We're bringing that table in, it gives you a, you know, pretty comfortable area to work off of. Makes everything nice to work on. You could see a difference without the light too. Like, you know, it's night and day, and instead of trying to use one, just, you know, one of the magnetic ones, this bar is pretty cool for anything you got to do inside. Evaporator cores, heater cores, you know, you name it. So you guys, that's just a close-up of these joints, Phil, and hands. It's a very good, strong joint. It gives you double reinforcement, and, you know, these are very iffy at best. I've taken apart a lot of fuel pumps, drop fuel tanks that they give you these butt connectors if they change the connector, and, you know, some people trying to do the job for themselves, they're using these and they don't have the right kind of crimping tools, and they think it needs a fuel pump again. It's just the original connector. Do not like them. These I do like. We've got your shrink wrap. After you put it on, slide it up, cover the joint, heat it up, and makes a good joint. I really like this. I wrote a soldering iron. It's like a mini soldering gun. It's a butane. The first one I got, I had to send back. It would not stay lit, but if you get a good one, these are good soldering guns, and I use them. I would have used this to solder this if I would have soldered it, and I'm still using it for the heat shrink. I mean, it's pretty compact for dashboard work. Takes a little bit to shrink them, but I mean, you don't want to burn any beside them. Just thought I'd throw that in there. I really like this little thing. I mean, that's how small it is. Well, that's a good sign so far. Fired up. As soon as I plugged it in, turned the key to the on position, just to make sure it shuts off whenever I shut the key off. Back on. Alright, it's a good sign. Now, I'm sure whatever I test speaker with it's going to give me a copyright violation, so I'm going to just make sure we got all the sound system. Alright guys, just dealing with things one thing at a time. First, we had no beat positive. That'd be for the memory for the radio stations, everything like that. So you definitely want that, especially with the Bluetooth connectivity, because I think you'd lose pairing every time, and pretty much anymore. You listen to Bluetooth more than radio. But I got it all zip tied, the harness zip tied, dealt with that. And then one thing is the car does not have a power antenna, and the power antenna wire for the stereo comes capped off with do not install unless you have a power antenna. Well, there was no output to the speakers until I connected that wire anyway, because it might have been an option for the car, even though it doesn't have it, hooked it up and works fine. So moved on. I mean, that's why I like these connectors. I just wanted to show you before we cover it up. It's, they hardly take up any room. They're not like them big bullets. Those red ones, they're just capping off wires that were already there, but these are all shrink wrapped and they're all in line. I try to stagger them too, and they're not much thicker than a regular wire. So whenever you put them into a harness, it still looks, nice and tight. Doesn't look like, what we pulled out of there. Well, I can't even find like this. This is what you don't want to see behind the dash. Just piles of this, and that looks much better. But it's even whenever I'm working in here with it plugged in, these light bars, I mean, that's got a bungee cord around it with a couple hooks. You could hang the bezel off of it and, give yourself some room down there without putting any stress on your harness or, risking dropping the stereo. But on that note, the antenna for the car is a much smaller pin. I don't know, let me see if I can get them both in my hand here. This is the pin that goes in the stereo, but this connection is very loose. So I put a couple pieces of shrink wrap lined up. What I'm going to do is connect it and make sure it, doesn't come loose from there. It'll look better in electrical tape anyways. All right guys, the next thing I did, let's see, I have the bezel hanging off of the light rack there. Gives you plenty of access to the wires. See, makes for a nice neat repair. But what I'm doing now is that this is for the GPS and for the microphone. What I did is zip tied them together just to make it a little bit more rigid, and I took off this pillar control. Now what I want to do is get the GPS up here by where the factory navigation is. What I like doing is putting the microphone coming right off the end of that pillar cover, so it's right here in your face when you're going down the road. You do have to roll up the window, but I mean, it's better than clipping it onto the sun visor, because then you could see the wire, and also you keep moving the sun visor. So they seem to be like, you know, right where your mouth is to talk on. So they're not the greatest mics like a factory one, but you want them as close to your mouth as you could get them. But what I'm going to do is try to get it down there in between the steel pillar and the dashboard. And then I have under here where the fuse box is, and I have through here where I'm hoping to fish them both through together. And they'll be easier together and zip tied like that, because that makes it a little more rigid, and you could see the zip ties and know you're getting the right wire. But we're going to see how that goes. See, right in between there is where I'm going to be going. And if I could see the wires down there, if I can't, I could go from underneath and get them through there. If I can get them this way, some cars you can, some cars you can't. But this one, being this is wide open like that, I think I got a pretty good feeling. All right, guys, the job always goes better if you're nice and comfortable. Like I have the bezel hanging there, and I still have enough room to get in the side. Now, I could not fish them two wires down by themselves, but what I did is took a piece of 12-gauge Romex, and that I was able to just easily push. I don't know if you could see it wiggling back there behind that wiring harness. Yeah, I could see it in the camera a little bit, right in about the middle of the screen. I mean, it's pretty dim to see back there, but I could see it pretty good. The camera's just a hard shot. But what I'm going to do is either grab the end of that wire with the crane game tool or a pair of needle nose. And these are pretty cool crescent ones because you don't have to open up the handle a lot. They're like double jointed. You just move the handle just a little bit and you could see it open. So that's good to get in there. But I'm going to try the crane game first, because who doesn't like playing the crane game? Okay, guys, I got you on the tripod on the other side of the car. I'm going to go in with a little crane, see if I can grab the end of that wire. Actually, this looks like a good shot. Okay, got a bite. What you want to do, because this wire is pretty rigid, you want to push the wire and just kind of nudge the end of it, but you don't want to do the pulling with the tool because it'll slide off. You're pushing it down into that harness, but it got it up to where it should be able to reach in there. Do the classic reach around. Okay, there it is on the end there. What did I win? GPS module and the mic. Alright guys, and now the idea is on this end of the Romex to tape the ends. Now what I'm going to do is stagger these a little bit and tape over the sharp edges. So this will be just more of a bullet shape. I mean, more aerodynamic, if you want to call it, dash dynamic, to pull through the other end. Because they're the square ends, you don't want anything, you know, hanging up. You want it as easy as possible to come through there. All right, we're going to see how it pulls through. just grab hold of it in here. Just pull the wire. Hopefully these clear the dash. Feels like it's snagged on something. There we are. There's the GPS and there's the microphone. Now at least they're on this side of the vehicle. Now I'll cut them loose and hook them up to the back of the stereo and then work from this way up. Put the microphone here and put the GPS on top of the dash. Morning, guys. It's magically the next morning, but got everything done yesterday. Got the stereo hooked up. Just a couple of normal bumps. There's always a couple, something goes wrong. There was no B positive supplied to the battery. That would kill the memory every time. Might have been a fuse, and the fuse was blown. Might have been, from me disconnecting, or it was just from the original disconnect. But that's where it's real important. I had Aaron text Tom, ask him if the stereo ever worked, because when I was getting no output on it, the first thing you want to do is suspect the new head unit's not working right. But, I was getting voltage coming out of it, and it was just weird. But, you kind of got to keep in the back of your head, if somebody already took the stereo out of this, you never seen it working. Did they take the speakers? I mean, did they have a whole system? Whenever they got rid of the car, they took the stereo and all the speakers, and I'm suspecting the power amp side, and there's no speakers in the car. I mean, so sometimes, just a quick shout out, hey, did this ever work? And he said, yeah, whenever they got it, there was sound coming out of the speakers. So that points you in a totally different direction. Where in this case, the instructions make no mention of it, and wire is capped off for the power antenna. If you have a power antenna that goes up and down, this does have a booster for it, but it was coming from the stereo, and if that wire's not connected, you get no, you get nothing. You get no output. Everything comes on, but you have no amplifier output, so you have to have the antenna wire hooked up. But got the exhaust on, even the chrome tip comes with it. All right, guys, the stereo's pretty decent. I like this. I told Erin, asked Tom where he got it. She needs one for the charger. It's pretty decent. One of the high points is it does come with an MP3. I've heard this song a million times yesterday. It's a Madonna song. Even though it comes with the stereo, with YouTubers, probably a copyright infringement if I play it. So, yeah, I had the one speaker in the door. It didn't pick up, but the tweeter was working in the column. So what I did, took off the door panel, and it was a connector, sprayed it, cleaned it, got the microphone up into the column there, and the navigation's right beside where the factory navigation was, and that's all you see is the little wires coming out there. These microphones, they're hit or miss. What I do is if you absolutely do use the talk feature and the microphone's not good enough for you, it is a standard 1/8" jack. You could get an upgraded microphone. If it's a strong point for you, there are alternatives, but the ones they come with, they're not really, you know, the like a factory, if you had factory hands free. But that song, you know, it's decent because if you're just going off of a tuner, these don't have CDs anymore, so you have no clean signal. All you have is a radio, and radio you get a little bit of static. You don't know if you have something to trace down in the speakers or if you know, you're just getting a little bit of static. But they do give you one free MP3, and it just plays over and over as you go from speaker to speaker. But it sounds pretty good. There's a little clip that was broken off here on the original one. It's just on the bezel. I wish it would clip in there good, but you know, it stays in there good enough. And if anything, you have to look for one of these on eBay, just the bezel for it. It's probably been in and out too many times, but now she's all good to go. And that being said, if you look at the odometer, got 250,000 miles on it. That's all I want real quick, you know. At least plug it in, get a full list of the codes, anything that the computer saw, maybe do an RC test on a charging test. You know, just he likes to watch YouTube videos, so, you know, give him a little bit of information you could watch, you could follow along, and you could understand. And that's what it's all about. You kind of do what they do on the videos, but I do it in the alley, and I'm not doing it professionally. So it's, if I do the same tests with a cheaper tool or an Amazon tool and it lasts a couple times, that's going to last me a while. You know, some things I use a lot, but a lot of the things you don't need a lot. You try to do the same thing on the videos, but you're getting the same information. You could compare it like, you know, a weak battery or a weak alternator. It's a weak battery or a weak alternator anywhere you look at it. It's a lot better getting your car scoped in the alley than it is plugged in at AutoZone. I guarantee it. This video has become, you know, a time to reflect really just how much I did learn off of Erico and how many things I did put into practice I learned from him. But when I was looking for, I don't know, over 3 years ago, this thing's been, you know, out of subscription for quite a while, but I was looking for a bidirectional scanner. And, you know, you see a lot of videos, you see a lot of reviews, you see a lot of Amazon, you see a lot of eBay, but actually watching him use an Autel, even though it was a bigger one, this is just a little MP808. But it's for, you know, except for 3 years, this thing served me well. It's never let me down. You know, it's been a pretty good scanner, so it's has a lot of the same features as the bigger ones, like the MaxiSys. And now there's a lot of other scanners on the market, but then there wasn't, you know, as many at a good price point now. So you might get more for your money now, but at the time, because this does not have the topography. So that's important on a lot of the newer ones, but it does have a lot of the bidirectional controls that the bigger ones do. And seeing him do it on the same menus, and it, you know, seeing him use the tool led me to get this as my first bidirectional scanner. So, you know, everything I look around, something I learned off of South Main. Yeah, software subscription expired on 3/17/2023, so that means I would have got it in 22. All right, we'll see if it auto detects. Key is on. This thing's a lot slower than the bigger ones, but you do see a lot of the same bidirectional tests that would actually surprise you. You see it on like a MaxiSys, and then you come in and hearing it. I mean, every car has a couple little active controls that are different than others, and they kind of include you. This taking a while to scan the code, though, or to scan the VIN. Oh no, it did get it. Okay, but it's a GM. Yes, it did read it. There's certain ones, I know VW sometimes I have to manually. That's, I'm not sure the difference between these two. I didn't look at the traction control. I did not see without all. I believe this is without. Right, at least it communicates. New vehicles, when you know absolutely nothing about them, you know, full scan's always a way to go. All right, pass, no fault. It's only picking up 2 modules. The airbags and the powertrain. The powertrain we're going to go into, though, and run it, let it warm up, and just look at the live data and see what the fuel trims are. And then definitely want to do an RC test on it, so I'm going to let it warm up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to do, I just thought about it a second. Sometimes, you know, you take a better look at it. I'm going to do the RC test. The car sat overnight without being started, so the RC test is going to be like more real world, what your battery's going to drop down to, because we're going to see the voltage on it. We're going to do the RC test, and that's going to give us like an initial real world, like you wake up in the morning, you start your car. Because if you do a starting test on an already warmed up car, that's not very, you know, realistic. Whenever you come out of work or whenever you come out of, you know, in the morning, it's going to be ice cold, so you want to know where that battery stands. All right, guys, I got the amp clamp around the positive battery cable. It's the only one I could get it around all the wires. Either one, you could use whatever cable's got better access. And then I have just battery voltage going to channel 1. And then I have the amp clamp on channel 2. That would be the green. I'm going to put you up on the tripod. I'm just using the HS512. And I'm going to see how close I can get you in there. All right, in the glare, huh? I'll shut the light off, see if that does any better. Alright, I'm not sure if this has clear flood mode, so this might end up being a starting and charging test. But I'm gonna take it the automotive module. 300, in this channel 16, we're using the 1 times. And then my probe should be the AES wave 60. High amp clamp. Okay, now I'm going to go to record. Okay, now I'm going to hit start, and I'm going to see if it does have clear flood mode. No, it does not. But we could still get some information out of that. You could hear that sound I'm talking about. Right, that's going to be enough time just to be the charging. Now what I'm going to want to do is pull the fuel pump relay and do the RC test again. But that's going to give me an idea where the battery stands cold. Plus fan, but we're going to take a look back.
focus on, see where the battery dropped to during the inrush of the voltage. Wow, that's pretty low. Maybe 5.93, 6 volts have dropped down to 8's our limit on the oscilloscope, so looks like the battery's not in the greatest shape. When we started, so it wasn't fully charged when we started. That was probably from, you know, playing with the stereo. That's still a hell of a drop. The amperage, we go down 413 initial inrush amperage of cold cranking amps, basically. That would look okay. Now you could get into more and more in depth with the scope, but definitely like putting a filter on a low pass. You could even put that a little bit lower. This is on the amperage, but you see how that cleans it up. Like this is turning the key on, and right here is your starter solenoid latching. Fires right up, not a lot of clicks. I mean, it starts sometimes you see a couple times here where the starter would try to latch. You'll see a couple of dropouts, like it'll rise and drop out. The starter looks pretty good. The battery, that's the only low thing we found from that. I'm going to just move on. I'm going to disable the fuel and just do an RC test, get the compression on this, see what we're looking at. Okay guys, all I'm doing now is just the same thing, only I pulled the fuel injection fuse for the fuel pump. I'm going to go to 20 millisecond. Going to keep the same resolution. I'm doing it on voltage and amperage. Those look good. I'm going to clear that. I saved it. I'm going to start it and just crank it. For battery out weak, it sure cranked for a while. I'm going to stop it and do a quick save of it. Ooh. We could see the humps. This is the amperage, the green, and this is the voltage. So you're seeing the same thing. As the amperage goes up, the voltage goes down. So you're still seeing the same. Even if you didn't have an amp clamp, you could still do an RC test with just the voltage. You could put a filter on that too if you want, but being I already have one on the amp, those all look pretty good. This thing has 250,000 miles on it, so I definitely wanted to do a RC test. They're not 100% to the top, but relative to each other, they're pretty damn close. And this is one like if you did see a low one, you have the cylinder identifier, so you'd have to put a sync on a spark plug or on a coil or a spark plug wire and then you could determine which cylinder is the weak one. But these all look good for Tom. Put a straight line up there where you could see. And it's all pretty even. 250,000 miles. That's surprising. But all right, way to go. Hey guys, this is a camshaft test, position test. Unable to communicate. The ignition is on. USB cable. Camshaft valve timing. Be sure fuel lines are connected. Okay, phase desired is 0, and the actual was 0. It's a good sign. The rocker arms solenoid command is off. It should be off. I'm going to take a good look at these. The camshaft phase solenoid is 30%. The engine speed is a little bit high. So that sound, I'm mainly interested there. In this, I'll show you. I'm going to save this. I'm going to actually save this as a PDF, because there is a lot of good factory service to compare this to. I'm going to just call this the cam. Just keep it short. Oh, cack, that ain't none. I'll show you a little later on. We could use some of this information for anyways. At least you have something known running. Okay, we could check some of this, but that was the main one, the timing, you know, on an engine with this many miles. Now I just want to take a look at the live data. You want to look at the, we can look at the camshaft phaser, but the cam test there just showed us a lot of information. Same thing. I just want to see where the fuel trims are at. Make sure the O2 sensor, the new one's reading good. Okay, now we're down to 800. Does got a little bump with there, but we're down 800 RPM. That's around where it wants to be. The engine load's 19%. Okay, we have a couple red in the O2 sensor. It's in closed loop. The O2 sensor, injector 1 command. Well, it's really flooding it. Now this is a 1.8. The mass airflow sensors, 2.57. So you can actually see the little shake to it. That's airflow sensor. It's, yeah, the live data is reporting very slow. Let's see, we're at idle and it's pulling in 3 grams. So might explain why the injector's pulsing. Trying to make sure this O2 sensor's working right. It's pegged rich by the looks of it. It's updating very slow. The short term and the long term. It definitely did not like the O2 sensor, look. It's updating very slow. Let me just see if one PID. Let me see if there's anything under misfire. Current misfire 29. Wow. The only one not missing cylinder too. Let it read the codes again, see if I mean that many misfires, you for sure this thing will be picking something up. Pass no fault. Hey guys, this definitely got a little shake to it. You can probably see the scanner vibrating a little bit. I just want to see the upstream because we just replaced that with a walker. A Toyota's usually around 3.3 and anywhere, I mean down even around 2.5, 2.6. But the O2 sensor is pretty happy right there. Whenever it goes, as it gets lean, the voltage increases. So it's like the opposite of an O2 sensor, and it is as it gets rich, the voltage decreases. But we're staying about 3.3 there. If anything, it goes a little bit over under load. So it'd be a little bit lean. It's a little bit lean, so that's why the computer's adding the fuel. The short term and the long term together, we're adding 9%. So that's not really the best. It's keeping the light happy for right now. But just the way this it responds real slow to the factory. I'm going to go back there, see if it's responded better. You know, push the plug in again, make sure it's well seated. See, this is why I went to just global OBD2. On the factory, this is the Pontiac side. It's still calling this an O2 sensor, which is really an air fuel sensor, but it's flagging it for the millivolts. But of course it's 3.3 volts, so that, you know, that's higher than that. It's an air fuel sensor. It's supposed to produce 3. But it's saying injector command is 5.89 milliseconds, but on global OBD it was fine. And it responds very slow under factory. Like that's how long it took for even a mass airflow sensor to realize that there's been a change. So that's why I want the global. It updates a lot faster, and even going to 1, like if you just took the math, it's really not updating too fast. But it's still got a little bit better as it warmed up. It's, you know, it's almost a whole gram per second off there. If the computer's reading it that slow, then, you know, it ain't going to be able to adjust that fast. All right, guys, just from looking at the live data pretty quick, it's, you know, it's running on the lean side. It's adding fuel. So I'm going to, you know, an unknown car, I'm going to just clean the math for him. That really isn't going to help much because it was getting down to like 2.0. But we're going to just give it a quick clean the throttle body for him. And that sound, that's what's drawing my attention more than anything else, is there's a sound coming from somewhere in here. And the easiest way is just take the belt off. The water pump, they do make noise on these. That would be right down there, the back of the bearing, which would be back in here. We see a little bit of oil there. The valve pan cover does the leak on it. But Tom's teaching his grandson how to work on the cars, you know, passing it on. So that's a really good thing. And because I wish if I'd have known, I'd have told him just bring another belt. I see a couple cracks in there. But if you want to show him how to put a serpentine on, you could just watch this video. We're going to take that off, see if the sound continues. Because there's one, I believe there's 17 millimeters on Toyotas down there. Yes. You don't want to get on the one that's holding the tensioner. It's just that one that's cast into the body. I'll show you when I take it off. And there's a couple cracks in the belt. So I'm saying if I had another one, I'd just put it on. But I'm going to start it up like you hear the sound of them, if you didn't already. But the sound that I'm talking about. Okay, guys, can you hear that sound? Now, it sounds like it's coming from under here where the timing chain is. You could hear the actuator on the cold start. So the actuator's going, but the water pump is right down underneath the alternator. It's really hard to tell by your ear which it is, but in this case, it's just easy enough to take the belt off. I'm sorry, guys, I said 17 millimeter. It's a 19 millimeter. And it's right here. There's a cast nut on the right in front of the tensioner. And I'm just using a long tool and a 19 millimeter socket. You could use a longer ratchet, but by these tensioners, they still got some force to them. Just push down with one hand. The old classic reach around again. Let it off. Then just take the belt off. We're going to see if it still makes that sound. And I mean, that's something, I don't know if that's where I learned that, but you know, I've seen Eric O do that a million times. So, I mean, it's just takes that little bit of doubt out of your mind. It eliminates a lot of pulleys. And a lot of things that could make noise. If I could get the belt out of there. These are fun to fish back on the ground. Sometimes you can take the wheel off, but I usually fish them around there with a piece of brake line. Pull it out of the water now. There we go. So I saw some cracks from up top. See all the cracks? I don't know if that's picking up. I'll shine a little light on them. They're all over it. So this is going to have to be sooner rather than later. I could see it from whenever it was still on. This probably is from sitting around dry rotted. You can see a lot of rust on the pulleys too, so it was sitting for a little bit. But I'm going to start it up and we're going to see if that sound's still there, if it went away. Yeah, stereo comes on every time you start it up, but I still hear that sound. It's coming from in here. Seems to be where it's strongest. I don't know, guys, that sounds like a timing component to me. Tell you while I'm here and I got that cover off, I'm going to take out a coil and the plug, just see the state of them. I'm going to put the bore scope down inside, take a look on the inside, just see, like, you know, basic condition of the valves, everything like that. Because if it's going to lead to something, you know, timing chain wise, you want to get a, you know, good assessment. See, putting it back on, it was easier going from the alternator back to the power steering pump first, around the crank and the tensioner, and then save the water pump for last, because you have access in between the windshield wiper reservoir and this AC line. That's the only place you could stick your hand down. And that pulley on the water pump does not have a ridge. The alternator has a ridge, so you have to push on the tensioner a little harder if that's the one you save for last. But I saved the water pump and then just put my hand down through here and slid it over whenever I compressed it. It's about the only place you really got room. The back you can't get. And I always use, I've been for years, just a piece of brake line. Whenever you need to hook back here to get the belt around the back of the power steering pump, a lot of these you have to take the wheel off. And if you still have a splash shield, you have to take that off and do it from underneath. But I'll use this to pick up the belt like this, or push it whatever way. But if you get under the ribs, you could pick it up and put it on top of pulleys. It comes in handy. And I mean, if you have to bend it, I mean, what the hell, it's a piece of brake line. All right, the plugs look like, I don't know if it'll focus on that. Enhance. Yeah. But it's, the gap's a little bit small on them. It's supposed to be 44 thousandths. And I have a 35 and a 0015. So this should be 36 and a half. But it barely slides. One's very thin, but slides on with no slop. So So we'll call it 37 thousandths. They're supposed to be 44. Now the thing with these iridiums is you don't regap them. See how hot they burn, and you see it on the outside, right on the end of that ground strap. These are still notched to like be adjusted brand new. If you try to adjust that gap and this breaks off inside your cylinder, you know, they burn really hot and it's really brittle. So you don't want to regap these. They come pre-gapped, or you want to gap brand new ones, but you don't want something that's been out white and hot. You don't want to take the chance of bending that outward and it snapping, causing a weaker point. But, you know, just gathering information. You know, that's whenever I pulled the plug out, I see that. Now I'm going to see how much compression it got in that cylinder. All right, guys. Before I do the actual compression test, I got out the bore scope, and I took out number 1 and number 2 spark plugs. They were both about 37 thousandths. But I take out number 1 and number 2 because if one's at top dead center, the other one's not going to be. And it's easier just taking out 2 plugs on this engine than having to take out just number 1 and then rotate the crank by hand until I could get the scope down there far enough to turn it around and look at the valves. So it's, you know, just a quicker tip if you're in don't want to be moving pulleys. But what I'm doing is just going down. I don't know if you got a view when you switch hands here. But I'm going to save this. Let me put it on. There's a way, and then here's another Eric Go story about using these. The very first one I bought, he did a review on Amazon. I'll show you whenever. But right now I got to get Tom's car back. He's going to be coming up whenever about 2 hours, but I just want to gather as much information as I can. Like on this, I'm going to start. Should start recording when I hit the button. I don't know if you got a view of that, but I'll download it and got a little bit of scoring in the front, but boy, you can still really see a crosshatch for 250,000 miles, but you know, the piston doesn't come up that high. Down here's where we're it's not horrible. I mean, there's all that crosshatch in there. It's see the difference where the line stops. There would have been like the factory crosshatch. Then you go down to the shiny stuff. But let me see if there's enough room to turn the head the whole way around. Get a view of the valves. Exhaust one. They're all still there. And you see the cord itself at the camera. You could even get in a little closer sometimes and see the actual valve seats. But you're not on the right angle for that. What I'm going to do is switch this to picture mode. And then whenever I hit it, it'll just take pictures. Sometimes the images, you could zoom in on things a little bit better. Hey, for 250,000 miles. Anywhere where I see scores or anything. But it's surprisingly clean for 250,000 miles. You know, you expect to see a little bit worse on the valve end, but you know, pretty good shape there. I'm going to do number 2, and then I'll include the footage. I'll download it to the laptop and transfer it. But if I see anything else, I'll pop back on right now. But it's a little bit cooler to see on, you know, looking at the file, not the actual screen. All right, cylinder number 2, the only thing I got a good look at was the top of the piston. That was at the top, very top dead center, number 2. But that's why I take 2 out. In that case, if I would have just taken number 1 out, I'd have been all right. But it's nothing to take 2 out. Now I got the compression gauge in number 1, and I pulled the fuel pump relay again. Now I'm going to put the camera down here. It's a little bit off angle, but I'm going to try to get you zoomed in on it, because sometimes that's better, because I could even actually go back and watch the video and see the very first pump. The first pump or 2 means a lot, and then, you know, we're going to see what the total compression is. Yeah, give it a couple cycles. All right, that should be good. Might wander around a little bit, but some people count the amount of revolutions or time, but after a while you just quit counting altogether, and you know what's good enough. And we're about at 160. All right. It's pretty good for that many miles on it. Actually, guys, I was counting wrong increments. If I count the ones on top, they're in increments of 10. It's closer to 170. It bled down just a little bit, but it's been holding that for about 3-4 minutes already. So it's pretty decent. A little bit better than I thought it was going to be. The inside doesn't look terribly bad, so just gathering all the information I can real quick, and then later on, after I give it back to him, he's going to worry about getting it inspected, and then, could gather some information on it. And if, it's a pretty good car if you put a chain on it. So far, everything's turning out all right, except for that sound and the battery. You can see the throttle's, fairly dirty. I've seen worse. But I'm going to clean that up for him real quick, and then I'm going to clean the mouth sensor. It was reporting fairly close after it was warmed up, so, that I don't see as a big problem, but just sitting around, blow the dust off of it, basically. It's a little bit more gritty on the inside, but what I do is I prop them open with something wood. You don't want to put nothing metal in there on that throttle. Just take a toothbrush and some brake clean. Then I use these blue paper towels because they don't leave any
residue on it. It's like, and you just want to make sure you get it all out of there. Take a double check. Okay, throttle body's looking really good. Got a bunch of dirt out of it. But now I took out the mouth sensor. Taking a look at the back of the hot wires. You could see there's a little bit of fuzzies in there. Enhance. There we go. So I'm going to just take a little bit of cleaner and a swab and clean it up a little bit. Wasn't misreporting too bad, but you know, you see a little bit of fuzz like that, take it off. All right, cleaned the wire off pretty good. There's 2 resistors inside there. I just gave them a spritz. I'm going to put that back in. The throttle body's all nice and clean. I'm going to take a couple more images of scan data. I'm going to save it as a PDF file again, so I could look on Mitchell. There's I'd say it's just more in depth of actual scan data parameters. But main thing, I'm going to do that later. Gather the information now, and you know, get it back to Tom. Okay, the fuel trims look a little bit better. Anyways, it's subtracted now. So that'll counter the long. Still cold, it's pulling 4.5 grams, but the idle's up over, what are we at, 1300. So the IAC's still keeping the motor up, the RPM up high. I'm gonna let it warm up, and there's a couple different ways. You could record like a movie, and then I could scroll through and save these, or I could save it as a PDF, which would be like a single shot. I'm going to do both, and then I'll have something to compare it to later on. And I'll show you what I was talking about in the Mitchell too. Whenever I make the video, I'll put it in there. It's you wish you had it on a lot more cars. I'm not even sure you have it on the Toyota, but the Pontiac, it says courtesy of General Motors. So General Motors is actually giving you Toyota engine information, so that's kind of cool. Okay guys, so fuel trim's going in between. Still reporting a little bit slow, but it's short terms at like 5.47 there, long terms at 5.47. Give a little throttle, the short term corrects itself. But I'm looking at is on oxygen sensor, because there's not a lot we could do about the fuel trim with the plugs like that. You know, it's not going to focus too much on that, but I want to make sure this upstream oxygen sensor's, you know, working right. It's swinging on both sides of the lambda. The lambda's 1. That would be the perfect stoichiometrical 4.7 to 1, and it's going on both sides of it, so it's swinging back and forth. They don't look like O2 sensors, but what you can see is at least their function. Let's see, even they seem to be reporting a little bit slower. We'll give it a snap. It's a little bit slower of a response, but it's still responding. So it's looking pretty good, and its voltage is in the parameter, and it's keeping that lambda centered on 1. So I'm going to record this again, just the live data that we have here. I'm going to just save that as a PDF, and then you know, do some comparison later on. Not right now, but I mean, right now it's running. I'm going to take it for a test drive. You know, just make sure it runs pretty good. It's that sound, that's the biggest thing I'm worried about with this car. You can definitely hear a wheel bearing sound. I'll show you whenever we slow down. I'm going to put it in neutral. And the sound didn't change at all.
wheel bearing somewhere.
Hey guys, Tom took his car yesterday. He took it back to get inspected and it passed, so that's always a good sign. But what I wanted to show you is whenever I look under, I'm not sure if this is the same with all Mitchell, but I use Russian Mitchell, so it's not exactly a full version. So whenever you look under Toyota, a 2005 Toyota, I believe I looked under a Corolla with a 1.8. There's no under engine performance and specifications, there's no scan data. Scan data on a lot of cars is hard to come by. Like if you do find under a component, it might tell you what its value is supposed to be. But being this is a Toyota engine that came in a Pontiac, it would have been returned to a Pontiac dealership where you wouldn't have Toyota scan tools, you wouldn't have Toyota trained techs. So they included a little bit more. By the looks of it, I think that's what they did, because you would be taking a Toyota back to GM. They needed to know a little bit more parameters, what the PIDs meant, because, you know, they didn't want to condemn a part that would be bad on a GM and, you know, Toyota. Now that is why I had to go to global. When I went to Pontiac Vibe, it read the VIN, it brought up the Pontiac software, but that O2 sensor, you know, it's an air fuel sensor. It's supposed to read 3.3 volts. And under the Pontiac side, I guess GM was still using, 1 volt max O2 sensor. So it was saying it was holding the injector open for like 5.5 milliseconds, which is, supposed to be like around 1. So it was confusing the scanner, but under global, it came up, no codes. I mean, if you had an O2 sensor that was supposed to have a 1 volt max and it was not 3.3, you're going to get an engine light. So the ECM knows this is an air fuel sensor, but the Pontiac software on the Autel, it was flagging. It wasn't pulling up a code, but it was red and it was saying it was holding the ejectors open for 5.5 milliseconds. And the car wouldn't run if it was holding them open that long. So, but under the global, I did find a lot of the same PIDs. There's some that aren't available under global, but what I was interested in, being as we hear some timing chain noise, 250,000 miles, I just wanted to mainly compare the cam angles, which I did take out the factory side, and some of the global OBD. And I'll show you what I mean here. All right, if I go down under engine performance, under the Toyota, when I looked under a Corolla, this was pretty bare. Now this has all for the different engines in a diagnostic starting point, where it has a scan tool data list. Now the main things I was looking at, I wanted to see this cam phase angle, the variance, the solenoid duty cycle, a couple things that, mainly to do with the timing. And on the factory side, under global, I couldn't get timing specs. So I got them off of the factory, but the live data I got off of, like this would be the timing. This is off of the GM side of the scanner. And the cam phase actual angle 0 degrees, cam phase angle desired 0 degrees. And then we have the actual supposed to be 0 and the desired 0. So it's good, it's hanging in there. Now the camshaft phase solenoid is 35 to 45%. And the camshaft phase solenoid's 30%. According to the live data. So that would lead you to, it's 5% under what it's supposed to be. And some of the other PIDs that it gives information for. See, this is all for scan tool. Usually you're not getting they want you to ohm something out or do this. This is going straight off of your scan tool. The short-term fuel trim, it gives you a minus 20 to plus 20. So we know that the spark timing is 4 to 14%. Now that's something I definitely want to compare. The spark is at 16. So we're 2 degrees more advanced on the spark. Now, without going into way too much to find something that's not setting a light right now, is the phase solenoid is 35 to 45% whenever that's what it's supposed to be. And we're at 30. So maybe if this thing's not advancing, yeah, you're more advancing engine timing, but the spark would follow very close. But you could hear the sound that the actuator is definitely on its way out. So, I mean, in actuality, it's pretty good that we're only a degree or two off with everything. Now, the spark plugs were gapped a little bit small. They were supposed to be at 44 thousandths. They were at about 37. So, I mean, there's a couple things. Like it'll tell you your MAF sensor, the 1.5 to 5 grams a second. Now on that, this was not under the factory. This is the global, where I could get to that. See, the oxygen sensor voltage is 1.29 or 3.29. So the factory side's seeing a 1 volt max and, you know, just not reading right. But that's why the global OBD, it's definitely, and see the fuel trims, short terms 5 and long terms, or short term 4.69, long terms 5.47. Sorry, it's hard reading through the camera here, but that's a little bit much, you know. I don't like seeing nothing more than 10, and you know, 5's really your best. But you know, an engine with that many miles, this is still good for an engine with that many miles, guys. I mean, it's a surprising engine. You know, calculated loads only 16. You know, it's and there's where the ignition timing here we're doing 14, which would make us on spec. Actually, the spark's 4 to 14 here, but I got 16 out of the factory side. You know, but Global does give you a lot of good information. But that was just real quick. And see here, it's actually calling it a lambda, but here we're not. It's not calling it the sensor ratio, but the oxygen sensor, it's still calling it an oxygen sensor. Maybe if I updated this, but that's a 2005 update that should have taken care of that. But I just wanted to show you, I mean, I thought it was pretty cool because whenever I look through here, and it gives you a definition of what everything does, the desired phase angle, and under a lot of manufacturers, even Honda, like under here, you don't get any of this, and you definitely don't get under a Toyota side. So it's pretty cool that Pontiac included this, because you could learn a lot of things, I mean, that apply to every car off of this. Yeah, you could keep it more in mind for a Toyota, but I mean, it's actually giving you descriptions, operations, everything. All worth a read, guys. Okay, guys, I just want to give you a closer look of why I use these, and just the inline. It's like a double crimp connector. One end of that goes around these big ears. They go around the insulation of the wire, and the smaller ears get crimped around the actual wire. I'm going to try to do this in front of the camera there. Let's see if I get a little more light this way. But there's different kinds of crimps. I mean, there's different kinds. There's always a right connector. Like these are Deutsch connectors. These are probably the best ones you're going to get. Round connectors, 4 crimp. There's 4 different places it pierces the connector and pushes it into the wire. These are very good connectors, but for a stereo, that, you know, no, there's different kinds of crimps. There's jaws. There's different kinds of crimpers, and there's what this would be a single crimper for the same thing. And you would do each one of those individually. You would crimp the insulation and the wire individually. Now this one crimps them both at the same time. And this I got on Amazon. It was relatively cheap. You get the whole kit. It's some line. And you get a bunch of these adapters and terminals that, you know, some of them I use, some of them I don't. But it's always good for quick. You don't have to set up your soldering iron. I make things like this that I put on the relays that have where you could get a voltage measurement. You take out the relay. Well, hold on, let me grab one. I'll just show you what I mean. This is one set of the relay jumpers. And some of these already have a button built onto them, but I happen to have these that they do not have the button. You put this in your relay and put the relay on top of this. But you have pins here, so you could put on alligator clips or something, get a reading across it, an amperage reading if you wanted. But this is from a wheelchair van I did. It's just a contact switch. And it was actually cheaper on eBay to get a pack of 5. And then I only needed one, but I just kind of repurposed this one. But what you do, whether this is a fuel pump or a starter, I don't know if I got the right pin on for this one, but you would jump it between the correct terminals, like the load terminals. So whenever you just hit the button, you'd power up your fuel pump right from the relay, or you'd start it with whatever circuit you were controlling. But I mean, it's easy to whip these up without even have to get out the soldering gun. So let me put that back in there. And so whenever you're going to solder, it's easier to solder in the dash. If the wires were too short to come out of the dash, I would have soldered in the dash. That little soldering gun that I wrote, it's great for getting in little places. But the thing is, whenever you go to do a crimp, these are 2 different gauge wires. This wire was 18 or 16 gauge, and this one's 18 gauge. But what's nice about these crimpers, when you look at them, the front set of jaws are smaller. Let me get some light behind this so you can actually see it. The front set of jaws, whenever you close them, there we go. You could see how it staggers down. Those are the ones that are going to go, the very front ones, these small ones on the tip. They're going to go into the 18 gauge wire. And then the next one down is just going to be one we use on the 16 gauge wire. So we're affecting our crimp. This side is for the wire, or for the insulation. This side, you could see how much smaller. That's for the part that crimps over the wire. And this will crimp it to the insulation and the wire at the same time. And the easiest way to make sure they're going the right way, you could go by the writing or whatever, but I'd just close them. The bigger gap is the insulation, and the smaller gap is the wire. So, let me see if this light will stay there. If we know this side always faces the insulation, we're going to go for the smaller of the 2 wires. You just push out to the end and let it click. Now you could leave go of the handle. Then you take the wire and you just push it in to the insulation. Now, can you see that this one's crimped to the insulation and that one's crimped to the wire? And that was on the smallest terminal. So we took the 18 gauge. Now for the 16 gauge, we want that to squeeze tighter on both the wire and the insulation. But not too tight to pierce it. So I'm going to use the middle hole. Same thing, the insulation goes on the bigger side like that. Then I just push them flush with my thumb. Then, I mean, you could maneuver this on top of another wire without having to hold, you know, this end. Then we're going to take the 16 gauge wire, do the same thing. So when you have that crimp, it's as, you know, and you hate saying as good as solder, but the one thing I'll tell you about soldering, everybody thinks that soldering is the end all be all to a wire connection, but you have just as much chance of overheating with your soldering gun, one or two of them strands of wire. That's why you always give them the tug test. If even on a solder joint, and a lot of solder joints break. I've had a couple of these pull out because they weren't crimped right, but just as many solder breaks pull apart because you burnt the wire. You know, something, the joint isn't as strong as it looks. But then you just take a piece of shrink wrap and you put it over this, and then whenever you put it, like if you've seen on the video how tight these were with the shrink wrap over it, it looks just like a wire. We have two different gauges of wire, you know, joined pretty solid. I mean, I trust them enough that if he ever has a problem with it, I'm going to fix it for nothing. I'll tell you that much. But, you know, these are good, and it's, you kind of keep down on the cost. I believe I paid a couple dollars for 100 of these. I mean, you get a whole bag of them for a couple bucks. So whenever you go to solder, you got to look, if you're not using flux, you're not soldering right, you're going to need flux, you're going to need, you know, your wire got to be in a lot better condition. Some of the old oxidized wire, even when you cut it back a little bit, you're still getting oxidation in the wire and it doesn't solder right. You have to always have solder. You have to have your iron close enough, whether you got a battery one, a gas one, you got to get it into the car. Whenever a crimp like that, save you a lot of time if you could get to the wire. Now, if that was in the dash, I'm not going to try to maneuver these into the dash. I would have soldered it, but you know, it's whatever presents itself. If you have a right tool to go in a different direction, you know, I like crimping. That's why I have all these crimpers, and that, you know, there's a different crimper for a different job. And the more you have, the more options you got to what's going to make a great crimp, you know, great solid joint. But all right, guys, I thought I'd share that with you because I didn't have time and it was too hard to film it actually in the car. But that's what kind of joints I use. This is just a cheap Sunline. I've used this quite a bit. I mean, I've never heard of the brand before. I ordered it, just an Amazon one. But if you are interested in these, that's the difference. You could get a cheaper crimper sometimes like this, but you have to do the insulation and then you have to do the wire. So you're making two crimps, whereas this, it's a little bit hard to get the hang of, but I always look at it, the insulation always faces this way. So you just get used to it and you can make some fast crimps. All right, guys. All right, guys, all in all, that was pretty cool. It's not every day you reflect on, like, until Tom said he watched Eric O. Then I started thinking of everything I learned from Eric O, or took his advice on purchasing stuff. And I know there's a ton more around here, but one of the ones was his undercoating videos. When we live like one state down from Eric O, so our salt, it's not quite as bad as New York. We don't salt in the summer like how New York does, but he did use this Wool Wax Professional gun. I should have thanked him for this 50, 60 vehicles ago. I mean, he has very good instruction on how to use it. And whenever you're getting an opinion from somebody like him, that's, you know, it's a good tool. It's a good, I believe he uses Crown undercoating himself, but I've seen him fluid film on there with, and these things, the Wool Wax gun, this is a professional gun. It'll spray anything. Now he has a lift. I had to modify mine a little bit because I'm on the ground so I could get tighter. But I mean, it's whenever you want to know his honest opinion, if a tool's worth getting or using, I mean, you could watch his videos, and if it's junk, he tells you it's junk, you know. But if it's good, it's good. Now, a year or two ago on, I believe it was like 2 years ago around Christmas, they had this Diagnostic bore scope, and it was on clearance for like $40 because they discontinued it. I go and I look at the reviews. There's an Amazon review by Eric O on this, and I think it was $40, but it was like my first bore scope that had 2 cameras on it. It has a front and a side camera. I figure if it's good enough for Eric O to even, you know, consider, and I believe he still uses the bigger brands of the Diagnostic. But that led me on. I mean, I've moved on to rail cam. I mean, the images this gets is, you know, not a ton different than that, but this uses the Type C, this uses the old Android, so there are some conveniences to the rail cam. But I took his advice on that. You know, that was I love that bore scope. I still do, and it's the rail cam has a shorter. And this, you could put up the exhaust pipe and it'll come out your carburetor if you got one, but not really, but you get the idea. It's longer in your car. From that to the fluid filming to, you know, purchases I made based on him, even the Autel. If he had a professional Autel, I felt safe getting the, you know, the lesser, the MP808 bi-directional, and I've been perfectly happy with it. Everything I took his advice on, you know, he's a real hero, the do-it-yourself guy. And, you know, it's not, never get under the assumption it's the tools. It's Eric O himself and the technique. And if you learn the technique, even if you got Harbor Freight tools, even Flushing got a heater core using the CLR and just using a sump pump to recirculate it. I learned that from him. That works. I pulled enough sand out of heater cores using that to fill up a sandbox. So it's a, you know, it's a great tip. It's a great, you know, it's just, he just gives you so much good advice that you could apply as a mobile mechanic or, you know, taking care of your family and friends' cars. The thumpers. I mean, in essence, Eric O did teach me how to shake it without breaking it, you know. These things are one of the greatest tips, and there's not too many guys you see using them out there with the frequency he uses them. That's for a reason. I mean, these will help you get out bolts. And if you strip out a bolt a little bit, another tip, you could hit it with a hammer, or like if the head's rusted or stripped, give it a shot right on the head like that. You know, then it's going to expand the bolt to where you could get another socket on, you know, and give it another shot with some heat or something. But these things do come in very, very handy. I mean, even for a small air chisel like that. Now, you see them get that thumper out sometimes. You might run into trouble then if you got a smaller air hammer, but this will shake off. If you're doing wheel bearings, if you're doing anything like with the axles, control arms, it'll shake a lot of things off of it, and it'll bump them bolts out if you have to. You might not torsion bars, you might not get too far with that, but then a sledgehammer will get you that far. But all in all, guys, I mean, you know, there's a lot of people making YouTube videos, and he's definitely one of the heroes. You know, there's so many things you could learn now because people like him, they take their time and they show you in a professional environment how to do the job right. And it's not about the tools. It's not about, you know, oh, he has this, oh, he has that. It's his technique. If you follow his methods, if you follow his, you know, if there's anything you think you would have done different in one of his videos, keep watching it and you'll figure out why he did it a different way. Then, you know, it's a no-brainer, guys. Eric O's the man. All right, guys, it's kind of ironic. I do get my parts from South Main Napa. Not a sponsor, by the way. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really enjoyed making the video. I'm thinking about everything I did learn from a particular creator. And, you know, there's a lot of good guys out there, but it's hard to think of anybody. It's like Scanner Danner, you learn so much from, but it's just specialized with the scope. But like Eric O, you've learned vehicle specific repairs, how to do them right, how to do them correct. I mean, there's so many different ways that Erico's, influenced my purchasing, my techniques, my whole way that you diagnose something or just the way you think about something. So, thanks a lot, Erico. I mean, we all owe you a great debt for what you do. But guys, and he's also been an inspiration. If you were thinking about making YouTube videos on repairs and you feel a little bit nervous, go to South Main and go to his oldest videos. He was not calm. He was not relaxed, and he looked like he didn't want to be doing that. Like how when I started, I didn't think I'd even feel comfortable at all. But it's something that he grew into the guy we know and love today, and he's very charismatic, and he brought us all a long way. So thank you, Erico. And remember, guys, if Erico could do it, so can you. Adios.